Finley, what's going on, man? It's 88.3 WLFC. My name is Alex Davis, faculty advisor of the radio station. Today in studio, we've got Seth Butler. Hello.
Hello, how you doing?
Not too bad. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
No, for sure. Thank you for your time. So, here at the University of Findlay, you are in the D&I space, DEI. Can you break these acronyms down, please?
Yes. Yeah. So DEI or D&I, diversity, inclusion, diversity, equity, inclusion. The whole premise behind a lot of it is to foster conversations, put on events, programming that really bring different people from different backgrounds together to learn about one another, to understand each other's differences, challenges, and try and make the place more welcoming for everyone, despite those backgrounds and identities.
Yes, different backgrounds and identities, right?
Correct, yeah.
So, for sure. Once again, thank you for your time. I want this conversation is about you. It's about your journey. And everybody's got a story. Everybody's got a journey, right? I want to hear about yours. And I know some of it to a certain degree just based off our conversations, but I want everybody else to hear about your journey. And I think you're an important person on this campus to not only talk about, but also talk to, and for other individuals to hear about and listen to.
I appreciate that.
So, no, for sure. So matter of fact, tell us a little bit about your journey. You're originally from Findlay.
Yeah.
You're a Trojan, right?
No. I'm an Eagle, Liberty Bitten.
Oh, my bad.
No, you're good. You're good.
Nonetheless, you're from the area.
I'm from the area. Yeah.
So take us from high school. You went to Colorado. Take us to that journey. How we got to present day.
Yeah. So high school at Findlay Liberty Benton was pretty heavily recruited for track and field. I was a half miler. So I had made a vow to never return to Findlay, actually. But as Justin Bieber reminds us, never say never. So I initially verbally committed to University of Louisville, Kentucky.
Wow.
To be on their track squad there. And I remember, felt like all the pressure was off, made my decision, and I was playing back when NCAA football still was a thing.
Right.
I was playing on Xbox, and I get a phone call from a 970 number, which is Fort Collins, Colorado.
Okay.
And I remember answering the phone, and I had just thrown an interception when I answered the phone, and it was the coach from Colorado State. And he was, "Hey, man, this is Coach Brian Berrio out of Colorado State." And I'm like, "Oh, crap." And he's like, "Excuse me?" I was like, "Nah, I just threw an interception." And he's like, "What?" And I had to pause the game. I was like, "I'm sorry. Can we start over? I'm playing video games. I threw an interception. Who are you?"
Oh, no.
And that was the start of the conversation. But long story short, we had about a half-hour conversation, and he had convinced me to fly out to Fort Collins, Colorado on a visit. And I got out there. I fell in love with the place. I'd only verbally committed to University of Louisville, Kentucky. And so then I had to call the coach and let him know, hey, it's not going to happen.
Right.
And so I signed my letter of intent with Colorado State. And then that summer, went out there for training camp. Did not have a major. Okay. Was undeclared with a business interest. And really, I didn't care. I was set going on the Olympics, man.
Okay.
I majored in track and field and minored in just passing classes.
Okay.
And I used to introduce myself "Hey, I'm Seth and I run track." That was everything.
That was part of your existence,
your
identity.
Yes, 100%. And so I had a great freshman year. I ran 149 and 800 as a freshman. Then that sophomore year, we're going into Olympic year. And I ran worse as a sophomore in college than I did as a senior in high school.
Wow. What do you attribute that to?
So I'm sickle cell trait positive.
Did not know that. I love the interviews. You just learn stuff that you don't know.
Yeah, man. So for those who don't know, sickle cell anemia is when all of your red blood cells, which carry oxygen to the body, are crescent shaped, which is why they get why you get the disease sickle cell, because they're shaped like crescents or sickles. And particularly when you're exercising, your body produces more red blood cells to carry oxygen to your muscles, to your organs as you are increasing activity. And with anemia, you don't have a long life expectancy. Actually, I had a cousin on my dad's side who died in their mid-20s because with all of those cells being crescent shaped, they will naturally catch on to each other, and then they create blood clots, and then blood doesn't get to major organs and muscles, and so you end up dying. So my dad has sickle cell trait, I have sickle cell trait, and so a certain percentage of my red blood cells are crescent shaped.
Okay.
So my sophomore year of college, I'm up at higher altitude with less oxygen in the air to begin with, and then I'm running 85 miles a week, going through some very rigorous weight training and workouts and things like that. And that condition that I have just blew up.
Ugh.
And so I was the body's defense mechanism is basically, okay, it's producing all these crescent-shaped red blood cells. They're not effective because they're not carrying oxygen and they're creating clots. So we're gonna shut everything down, like lower the heart rate, and all those things. And so I was passing out during workouts. I remember one time I passed out, barely had just finished the race, and hit the track, and I wake up on a stretcher in a medical tent. So yeah, the sophomore year was crap for me. And so much so at the end of that year, I sat down with my coach, the head athletic trainer, the head coach, and one of the doctors, and they basically said, "Hey, we love you. We want you to be successful, but it might be best for your health to leave." And so that was really eye-opening for me of like, man, I'm not sure if I'll be able to run again. And it was heavily monitored, getting blood drawn every couple of weeks. So that was essentially the end of my Olympic aspirations.
Okay.
Running wise, I was still able to run my junior and senior year, cut mileage from running 85, 90 miles a week to about 40 miles a week. So I had to cut my training essentially in half. But was still able to compete, made it back to the national stage junior and senior year on limited training. Met my wife senior year.
Yes.
She was a freshman, I was a senior. Went to grad school because I had to make up for the years I was not academically engaged early on. So I went to grad school, got married during grad school. Right after my program, I worked in the athletic department. It was in student affairs, but it was connected to the athletic department, working with at-risk student athletes.
Okay.
Did that for a year, then came to Findlay. And I've been at Findlay for about 5 years now. The first role I was in career services, so resume writing, career coaching, all of those things. And now I'm in my role as the diversity inclusion guy. So there's, and I'll pause there, but there's kind of the quick snapshot.
No, for sure. It's a beautiful snapshot. One, I want to take it back to the phone call, the initial phone call you had with the coach, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'm sure you've processed this already, but what I took from it was, okay, while it was maybe not the best entrance to combo with the coach who's recruiting you, but probably heard your level of competition that you just threw an interception on a video game. Okay, this is what we want. We want this level of competition. He's mad that he threw an interception. But that's what I feel. I feel you're, and not necessarily. I feel your competitiveness when I talk to you, and not like you're competing with the person next to you, but you're competing with yourself.
Oh yeah.
When we have conversations, and it's inspiring, right? Because it motivates me. Okay, well, this is what he's doing. This is how he's acting, and this is how he's moving. Okay, well, let me get my game together, right? Let me make sure I'm on my ones and twos in whatever direction I'm going, so that I can continue progressing as well. So, but I think the competition with yourself is a positive thing in most regards.
I appreciate that.
No, for sure. I think sometimes we have to dial it back. Maybe we do it too much, right? Everything in moderation, but nonetheless, it's beautiful. So you grew up in this area. You're back here.
Yeah.
You didn't want to come back here.
Yeah.
When you were leaving high school, you wanted to get out and stay out.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Is it different for you now being back here? Family oriented? Is Findlay what's your take on the area in that regard? Because I get the whole, I'm sorry, I'm going to cut you off. Actually, I do. When people, I hate when people say I'm going to cut you off. Well, you do because you did it. But no, I originally from Dayton, Ohio.
Right.
And when I left Dayton, Ohio, my sophomore year of high school, and even before then, I knew, okay, I want to get out of Ohio. I definitely want to get out of Dayton.
Yeah.
This is not where I want to be. And I know a lot of individuals stayed around there, right? And to this day, have never left. And if they love it, they love it. That's for them. But I'm just like, man, how have you not seen or lived somewhere else?
Right.
And so for me, that's where my mind's at. But coming from Las Vegas to Findlay 2 years ago, with a family, my headspace was different.
Right.
Okay, cool. You know what? I don't have any desire to be in Vegas anymore. I actually enjoy being here where there's grass and it doesn't take me 30 minutes to get to the other side of town, right? So where's your head at in that space?
Yeah, I mean, so the impetus for coming back to Findlay was family-oriented. So I have 7 siblings, 3 older brothers, 3 older sisters, and then a younger sister. So I joke, but part of the reason I was able to get a track scholarship is because I had to be able to run away from all my siblings, man. So, I mean, being 7 of 8, so 6 older and 1 younger, when I left, my sister had just had her first daughter, so first grandbaby for my mom and dad, and more just started coming, right? So I was gone for over 7 years, and I became in some regards, the estranged uncle.
Okay, right.
That
you're not seeing them as much.
Right. So I was home, once or twice during the holiday season, either Thanksgiving or Christmas, and then maybe early on, once in the summer. But then as I was out there longer, sometimes I wouldn't come home in the summer, right? So I might be around once or twice a year. And when I had initially went out there, I kind of fell off the map with a lot of my relationships here. So much so that my brother, who I'm really close with, and some core group of friend guys, they had called me and they're like, "Hey man, you're out the group. You fell off, man.
We lost touch with you."
Yeah, it's like you've been AWOL.
Or you lost touch with us.
Yeah, exactly, man. Like you done forgot about us. You flew the coop and then you don't want to hang out with us anymore. So that was a wake up call. But when I got married, and was working in Fort Collins at CSU, I mean, there's so many things that were happening family-wise. I just lost my father. There were some things going on with different siblings that I just felt that it was important for me to be in the lives of my siblings and my nieces and nephews. And my wife, she's the oldest on her side of the family. So I talked to her. I was like, "Hey, listen, I'm not sure what opportunities there are back in Findlay, but I'm going to look and see because I think it's important to go back and be plugged in." And so we did that move back in 2017, and then in 2018 got pregnant with our first child. And then my mindset now is, Findlay isn't all that bad, right? I mean, there's some things that contributed to why I didn't want to come back, but there's good people here. It's a safe community. It's a good place to raise a family. And, I live right next door to my brother and then across the lake from my other brother.
Oh, that's perfect.
So to be able to kind of reinvest in some of those relationships, I love it now. And I'm excited to continue to have, my daughters be able to just run right across the yard to hang out with their cousins. I mean, that just fills me up with so much joy that they can do that, and I want them to continue to be able to do that.
No, I love it. I love to hear it. My brother, he lives in Columbus, and my niece and nephew are 10 and 7, and so my son he's about to turn 3, and so there's an age separation. But when we FaceTime them or when he does see them in person, he lights up. And when he first started coming out of his shell around them, like, I felt that joy. So what you're speaking of, it's fairly new to me. But it's also like it feels amazing when you feel it. Okay, he's happy. He's looking up at his cousins. Like, okay, this is great, and he loves his Uncle John. So Uncle John is weird. John, my brother, you're weird. I don't know why, but he loves your soul. So it works out. And so he loves his family. So what you're speaking of, it really hits home for sure. Can you explain some of the maybe the benefits, the positives, but also the difficulties of working in the diversity space, not only on a college campus, but in a community like Findlay?
Yeah, I mean some of the positives for me. I mean, I'm a people person. A lot of people think I'm an extrovert, but I'm just social.
Okay.
So okay. I don't recharge around people. So at the end of the day, when people are like, "Hey, we're going out, we're gonna do this, we're gonna go happy hour," I'm like, "No, y'all can catch me tomorrow because I'm going home. I'm putting on sweatpants and I'm just gonna chill.
I'm getting comfortable.
Yes,
I get you.
So I don't recharge around people, but I love being around people.
Right.
I have a high social battery. So because of that, a lot of the benefits of being in the DEI space here is that, I mean, Findlay is predominantly white.
Right.
Predominantly homogeneous in a lot of ways. And I think that, at least for me, how I feel about it is I feel like I have a unique opportunity to enter into conversations differently than what we see happening on a national landscape.
Okay.
I I mean, you turn on the news, especially, a couple summers ago during a lot of the racial protests, the conversations weren't necessarily happening. Right? There were protests, there were counter protests, there was finger pointing, there was blaming, there was this almost like you could touch it and feel it, hate, right? So much so that it's become difficult to even mention hot topic buttons like racism or race or police brutality. Like it became so difficult to do because what I did not see happening was productive conversations across political lines, across racial lines, across societal lines. What I saw was a lot of, just fighting.
Is this different than it was in other aspects of time? Different than the 60s maybe?
I don't think so. No, I don't necessarily think so. But I think for me, being a young guy, and even for others in my generation, I think it was probably one of the first times that we witnessed and saw it to this level of degree.
To this level, okay.
Right.
Because in my head, I'm thinking the conversations have occurred, the conversations have happened, right?
Right.
But maybe not to this level.
Correct.
For our generation. I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So, people, a generation or two older remember a lot of the riots and protests with Rodney King, right? And then obviously, before that, you have the civil rights movement. And so to see something happen at a national stage where all 50 states are protesting at once on over George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, and then to have those conversations permeate into the classroom and into societal, just out at happy hour type of environments, we weren't seeing that prior to George Floyd, right? Like, you weren't going to be out at the bar somewhere or hanging out, and there's not going to be a casual conversation around race happening, particularly here in Findlay. Right. So I do think that one of the unique things that I appreciate is having grown up here, having known and still do know the Findlay area, I believe that I can enter into that conversation with just about anybody in a way that's not filled with those high tensions. I get to do it in the classroom all the time, and I'm an open book. And I allow people to ask questions and to speak their mind, even if they don't think that it's with the times, because I'm like, listen, we're all here to learn and grow. Like, none of us are experts. And so I think those are some of the benefits of doing that here is I think people feel comfortable being able to talk to me about the tensions and about the complexities around particularly race relations from a D&I perspective. On the flip side, some of the challenges are because the past couple of years, or even the past decade, go back to Mike Brown back in 2013, because it's been so tension filled. Some of the challenges are that tension is brought in at the forefront of the conversations. And it can be hard to cut through that tension, even with good intentions and trying to be educational and learning with each other.
I know for me to this day, it's still tough to when I speak about it or speak about these situations that occurred. The first thing I see is red. I see sometimes I get filled with anger, just thinking about the situation, and so it's tough for me to hear somebody else's point of view if it doesn't align strictly with mine, because in my head, what I'm thinking is blatantly correct, and I know it's correct, but you can't help somebody else, or you can't change things without listening, and so I get what you're saying, but it's innately tough for me.
It is, and it's tough. So I think that balance is what I experience is there's lots of good opportunity to break down stereotypes and notions and debunk things that persist. But there are times we enter in with those stereotypes and those notions at play already. So, I mean, I've had students say that, white students say that they don't like to enter into the conversation because they feel like they're always going to get attacked by a person of color. And then I have, I've had black students say that they don't like to enter into the conversations because they don't always want to be the ones who are having to educate and to teach. And so, or have to justify the way that they feel about something because someone else doesn't understand it. Both of those realities are in fact realities for the individuals who are experiencing them.
Right.
So I like to be the moderator in those types of situations, to be able to allow both of those realities to be present in the room and work through them together, rather than getting to a place where we aren't able to work through it,
right,
and then you just leave not understanding the other person's reality.
There's no growth, no progression,
exactly,
no unity.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I love about being able to do D&I work is if we can become closer, if we can become stronger together, if we can become more unified, if I can understand you, your lived experience, the more you know somebody, the more you're naturally going to care about them because you've gotten to know them. And ultimately, my goal isn't to necessarily change people's mindsets all the time. It's more so to create bridges for you to get to know somebody that you would not have gotten to know otherwise.
Right.
Because if you get to know them, you're going to care about them. If you
Yes.
care about them, you're going to treat them a certain way. You're going to understand them. You're going to want them to succeed and thrive in life.
And you're gonna genuinely want to understand them and want them to understand you.
Exactly. But so much in society, we don't see that modeled, where we get on our debate topics,
right,
and our talking points. So we gotta make sure gotta say this point at some point in the conversation. Otherwise, I didn't do a good job.
Seth, you're targeting me right now.
Yeah. So we get so caught up in making sure we plug in the points that we feel like we need to, that we fail sometimes to see that other person is a human with lived experience and emotion and ambition and goals, and we miss all of that great human value because we're so busy debating a social topic, a political topic, a racial topic, that if I can help people push pause on some of that stuff and just be like, hey, listen, did you know that your classmate over here, this is their experience? Like, well, I never knew that. Now you might care about them a little bit more because there's insight that person has allowed you to see. And I feel like if we can do that, that's the good work within DEI.
You gotta listen. People gotta listen to each other.
Yes.
And in my past, I haven't always been the best listener to certain crowds or certain individuals.
Oh, none of us have, man.
I didn't care to listen, right? I'm okay. If I'm pretty sure I know I'm correct, I need to listen to your opinion. But that doesn't do any good. So
right.
No, I love everything that you're saying. I appreciate it for sure. Back, and I mean, this is obviously about you. This is your work, right? But also back to you in a different space. I want to take it back to track real quick.
Yeah.
So I ran the 800 in high school as well. Mile. Didn't like the mile. I loved the 800. Fell in love.
Yeah.
But I don't always meet individuals that ran the 800.
Right.
A lot of individuals that I meet, they ran sprints and whatever. So you can't relate to like, oh, you ran the 800. Oh my gosh, that's horrible.
Yeah.
Like, you did the 100. That's horrible. When the 100 is easy, I just can't run it as fast as somebody else. So I met you, right? And you said you run the 800. I'm like, oh, I'm excited. Then you said you ran 149. Like, I'm not excited anymore. I liked my time until I talked to you. So I just wanted to hit that real quick.
Yeah.
You're also a bit of a hooper.
I try to.
A little bit, right? Yeah.
I try to.
I get you. Okay, so hooper, I had a conversation with one of Finley's players, Cameron Shaw, the other day. Maybe Hooper's different. Hooper is a person that gets a bucket regardless. Not saying you're not a hooper,
right?
But I don't want to qualify myself as a hooper. I can play basketball, but a hooper is someone who innately can get a bucket regardless. And Cameron said he was a hooper. I'm gonna go to the game tonight, 7:30. Okay. We're gonna see who all is a hooper. So what are some of your goals as far as diversity space or just in general, career-wise? All around set.
I think one of the goals I'd like to try and accomplish over the next 5-ish years, not to necessarily put a timeline on it, but in the near future, what I would like to do is I would like to write a book, and I would like to secure more public speaking engagements.
Okay. Yes.
I love engaging people on stage. I enjoy it. I like to create content. For those who know me as the diversity guy, they don't always know that I'm also a poet.
Thank you. That was my next question.
Yeah, so like I like to write, man, and I like to create content that's thought provoking, that's layered, that's complex, but also short enough where people can digest it quickly, but then continue to chew on it. And so I've had a few opportunities to put some of my work out there in the space and travel and speak a little bit. I would like to do more of that.
Right.
And then down the road, I'd like to take, what is mostly just stuff on my computer and notes on my phone in terms of content and get that into a published book where it has some legacy to it.
Please. It's about telling stories, right? And I say that, and it goes hand in hand with the communication department. But it's really what life is about: telling your story, telling other stories, and I think it's all about who tells certain stories as well. And you've got kids, and so you know when they get their story too, when they get older and want to learn more about their dad, which maybe they didn't know. Here it's in an actual book, right? Let's read it. And we're gonna learn some things about dad that maybe we didn't know, right? In his story, and so and their family story. So I think that's a beautiful thing. I've heard some of your poetry. I love it. The first time I found out that you were a poet was Constitution Day event. I don't know what it was called. Sorry.
Constitution Day. Yeah.
But and I won't dive into the poem right now. But the poem, I didn't know that you were gonna give. I didn't know that it was gonna be a poem. Okay, he's speaking. I know that. I don't know what he's speaking about. Even you didn't speak. You spoke. You performed, and I was caught off guard in a great way. And then I've heard some of your other poems in recent times, and yeah, you are a real poet. So, and people need to hear that.
I appreciate that.
No, for sure. Wrapping things up here, I don't want to keep you too long. I asked this question. This is a new question that I began to ask in my fatherhood days or days of fatherhood. My son Miles, he'll be 3 in February, and when he watches this interview 5, 10, 15 years from now, and this goes out to all the young people, but I'm using him as a basis. What is one piece of advice that you would give to him when he watches this from Seth Butler? What should he take from you?
Yeah.
In life, in general.
Yeah, in life. So yeah, being a father now, man, and having kids and thinking about the ways in which I've grown a ton since becoming a father. There's a motto that I live by, and I don't know when this started for me. It's been a few years now, and you've heard me say it before, but growth and grace. Like we all need to grow in a variety of ways, in a variety of areas, but we all need grace. We need the opportunity to fail and try again. And we also need to be administrators of grace where when other people fall and fail, we give them grace to get up and try again. And I say that from the perspective of a parent because my youngest daughter, she can walk now. And I'm sure you saw this with your son. Dude, these kids are resilient. And they try. I mean, whether they're trying to climb up the couch, whether they're trying to walk, take that first step, and they fall, and they fall, and they fall, and they fall. And we, unfortunately, my experience, in some ways, some of it direct, some just being exposed to it in a kind of a cutthroat capitalistic society, is that you get to fall a couple of times max.
Right.
And people remember your failures rather than your successes. You could do something right 9 times, but on that 10th time you do it again, you're blasted for the time you didn't do it right. Exactly. So for I'm thinking about my daughters. One of the things that I hope I leave them, money and inheritance. I hope I leave them, good memories. But I hope I leave them life lessons that can help build their character. And kids already have that growth and grace mindset from when they're little.
Right.
But it gets squeezed out of us the more life that we experience. And so
right.
what I would want your son and even my daughters to think about is to hang on to that try, no matter how many times you fall.
Right.
And because you're going to get grace from your parents to try again, but also to be a conduit of that and to model that for others.
I love it. I don't think there's a better note to end on. But I will ask you this. Anything left that you want viewers, audience members, listeners to know? Any way to get in contact with you, to work with you? What would you leave them with?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so I work at the University of Findlay. I love what I do. I'm easy to reach by email. I'm often not in my office because I'm either in a classroom doing a presentation or I'm over kicking it with you.
Right.
So,
for sure.
Best way to reach me is just butlers@findlay.edu. So my last name, Butler, S, Seth, first initial. And then shoot me an email. I'm always willing to, have conversations, brainstorm how we can do and be better together, and that's the heartbeat of why I work at the University of Findlay.
Definitely. No, I love to hear it. Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for your presence. I appreciate you making an effort to reach out to me. I'm still, obviously, I'm fairly new here still.
Yeah.
Just completed my first semester and into the second semester, and I'm loving it. But it's also makes it a lot easier when individuals around you make you feel comfortable and at home and welcome. And so I thank you and appreciate you for that. And I look forward to continue working with you, man.
100%. We'll do it again.
There you go. Seth Butler, Alex Davis, 88.3 WLFC.